Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Ruben. We're back with another video. Just a quick video I wanted to make as I'm reading my Bible. Right now, I'm in the book of Exodus, and there was just something that, as I was reading the book of Exodus, that really stuck out to me, and I thought that it would make for a good video. So I was like, why not turn on the camera and start recording and start talking? You know, that's what I want this channel to be after all. Got my notes here in case I forget my points, but keep this in my hand. Today, like I said, we're in the book of Exodus, and for those who don't know the story of Exodus, or maybe you just need a refresher, in Exodus is basically the story of Moses, and it's where God calls out to Moses and he commands him to go back to Egypt, where he's originally from, and free the Israelites from enslavement. He's called back to Israel to free the Israelites, and he has to go speak to Pharaoh multiple times to convince him to let the Israelites out and to free them from their enslavement. And in this story, there's a total of 10 plagues that God sets on Egypt to punish Pharaoh for not giving up the Israelites. And each time Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, hey, this is what God has told me. He said to free the Israelites from enslavement, and if you do not free them, this is the plague that's going to be set loose on your city. And there's 10 of them total. So there's the plague of the blood, plague of the frogs, plague of the gnats, plague of the flies, so on and so forth. And each one was widespread throughout the entirety of Egypt. And it took 10 plagues for Pharaoh to finally give in and set the Israelites free from their enslavement. Each time that Moses went to Pharaoh and told him to give up the Israelite slaves, he said he just kept rejecting them. Or sometimes Moses would God would command Moses to set the plague loose, and then Pharaoh would say, okay, fine, tell God to take the plague off, bless your God, and then I'm going to set them free. And then after the plague was gone, he would not hold up to his promise. And something that really was sticking out to me is it's very easy for me and all of us to look at Pharaoh and say, like, man, what are you doing, right? Because you see that every single time Moses says God is going to do this if you don't set them free, God does it. If you don't set them free, God is going to do this, God does it. And he did this a total of 10 times over and over again. God held his word and performed the miracle that Moses said God was going to perform. And I'm sitting here reading Exodus, and I'm thinking, like, how, just for lack of better words, like, how foolish do you need to be to not fear God and to respect that what Moses says God is going to do, he's going to do after he's done it so many times prior. And yeah, so it's just replaying in my head. I'm like, Pharaoh, he's obviously going to do this, and your city's in ruin. You know, they set flies loose, they set frogs loose, they killed all of the firstborns. God also, the plague of darkness, he set Egypt dark for a total of 3 days. And mind you, all of these plagues were only specific to the Egyptians, and they weren't cast on the Israelites. And God did this purposely to to distinguish the Israelites from the Egyptians, to show that the Israelites are God's people. And yeah, man, like I said, it's just like, Pharaoh, how many times is God going to have to punish you for the same sin over and over again? But, you know, it took me a moment. I sat back and thought, I was like, wait a minute. You know, I'm just like Pharaoh. You know, we're all just like Pharaoh. A lot of times I think that when we see these evil characters, if you will, in the Bible, or just Bible characters that performed evil, it's very easy to look at them and say, you know, oh yeah, no, that's Pharaoh. You know, Pharaoh was crazy. He did all these crazy things. You know, oh, that was Judas. Judas portrayed Jesus. You know, that was crazy. Like, I'm not like Judas at all. But I think that sometimes we are more like these evil characters or people or biblical figures who performed evil than we actually think. I think that we have a lot more similar qualities to them than we actually notice. And I say that because in the context of Pharaoh, right? How often is it that I have performed the same exact sin over and over again? and had to reap the same consequence over and over again, yet I still did it, right? And, some of these sins I'm still battling to this day. Things that I know once I do them, I'm going to reap the consequences, yet, the I have such a lack of discipline and self-control to not give in to the sin, although I know what's going to happen after I do it. And that's exactly what Pharaoh was doing. Pharaoh, it took Moses to tell God to set 10 plagues on Egypt before Pharaoh finally just gave in and said, you know what? Take the Israelites. I give up. And like I said, at first I'm just like, Pharaoh, you're so foolish. Why? Like, you're so dumb. Like, just give up the Israelites. But I'm looking at myself and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, Reuben, how many times have you done exactly what Pharaoh's doing? There's plenty of times in your life where you performed the exact same sin and you repented for the exact same sin, and yet you still went on to do it multiple times after, knowing that God is watching. And yeah, that's the overall message, is that we're just like Pharaoh. A lot of us are, because I'm sure you guys can relate to performing the same exact sin over and over again, knowing what God is going to do to you, knowing the consequences that you're going to reap for your actions. And yeah, that's just something to think about. When we see these evil Bible characters, before you condemn them, or just maybe somebody in real life, somebody that's maybe living in the world and doing something crazy, at one point you were in their shoes, at one point you were ignorant just like them, and you didn't know just how damaging the actions and the things that you were participating in were to your life. It took you time to give your life to Christ and to fully start changing your life. And nobody's perfect. Us as believers, we're not perfect. We still have so many flaws to work on. But before we cast stones at other people, or we read the Bible and we look at Judas or we look at Pharaoh and we say, oh no, that's crazy, I would never do that, or how could they do that? Look at your own life and try and compare yourself, rather than just compare yourself to people like Moses who have performed these great miracles or these great challenges. Look at the other people and say, you know what? Like, I might be more like Judas than I actually think, or more like Judas do I actually notice than I actually notice. So yeah, something just to think about and just pray about as well. Talk to God, and I would encourage you just to say, God, you know, reveal these things to me. Some of these flaws and things that are bad qualities, bad habits that I have. Some of them I may not notice, and that's something I'm going to do. I'm just going to pray to God that He reveals these things to me, and that I don't have the mindset that I'm just better than everybody else, or better than these people like Pharaoh or like Judas. So yeah, short, sweet, to the point. I hope that spoke to you guys, because trust me, it spoke to me as I'm sitting here reading Exodus. And yeah, I'm out, man. Stay blessed, y'all.